And we are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. SHE-ness Tribe. I'm so excited to bring our weekly live with our very first male speaker. What? He's coming into the Women's Only Forum for a very specific purpose. I'm Roya Mattis, the creator of SHE-ness Tribe, where we believe in unification, unifying fully to self first, and therefore able to fully unify with each other, women to women, and then our men too. And today we invited author of The Masculine Relationship, GSYoungblood, to join us because we need a male's perspective. We need each other. We completely believe in unifying and collaborating and that we're better together. And so it came time to add in a male voice, not just any. You guys, wait till you hear his accolades. I'm going to change this to speaker view. I know I'm not used to doing that. Yay. We're going to try a new format today. I'm going to introduce GS to you guys, and you'll see, to everyone, to see why he was specially invited as our first male speaker. He has been going through a 10-year process to come to this point that we're going to be able to experience the years of evolution, experience, transformation, workshops that he's collected, time that he spent in this particular subject, which is how can a secure masculine show up in a relationship? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Why does it matter to us as the feminine entity? It might be a man and a relationship, it might be a man and a woman, but to the feminine at core with the masculine at core. And for ease today, we're going to talk about male being masculine and female being primarily feminine, although it can interchange, just for ease of language. So today we're going to get insight and tools and techniques that GS has refined over a decade. He coaches men in relationships how to live, love, and lead from their masculine core. He has been a student and a creator in the fields of men's work for 12 years, over a decade. Through this lens of masculine leadership, he also applies the principles from a variety of fields: psychology, martial arts, tango, meditation, and BDSM. All of his writings are filtered through the laboratory of his and his clients' real-world long-term relationships, including the successes and spectacular failures, to see what actually works and what doesn't. To follow him and to learn more, you guys, he has a phenomenal website, GSYoungblood, that's GSYoungblood.com. In his past life, he was a high-tech executive in sales and marketing for 16 years. 3 of the companies he was with were acquired, including one of which he founded. Leadership practices of Silicon Valley, based on clarity and inspiration rather than control, are a major influence on the model of masculine leadership that he shares with his client. I found GS because I stumbled upon his book in an Instagram pop-up. I don't know if it was an ad. I think it was somebody's post. And because I love the subscript of the title, which I can't believe I didn't bring my book right now. If I brought my book, you guys, it's earmarked, it's written in, it's highlighted, there's yes, 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 written all over the margins, because I was like, he is speaking my language right now. I love this. And so I posted a quote after reading the book. You can purchase on Amazon, y'all. The link is in, you can go right to his website and order it. You can go to Amazon and order it, and the link is right in our private Facebook group for the Women's Forum. When I got it, I was eating it like the most delicious food I've ever had. And so I quoted him in my Instagram page and tagged him and there in Facebook. And GS himself responded to me online. And then I didn't seem to see it. I don't know how I missed it. And then he emailed. And my assistant goes, "You got an email from a GSYoungblood of the masculine." What? What? I freaked out because the title, you guys, the subscript is actually what caught me. It said, "How to inspire." Now tell me if I'm quoting this wrong. Just how to inspire the trust, lust, and devotion in a strong woman. I'm like, yes, I want to hear about that. And so once we began connect, I've done a podcast with him as well on his channel this beginning, and so I thought we have got to get you in this community. So that was a long introduction. I've enjoyed everything that I've learned from you already. Welcome to the SHE-ness Tribe, our first male speaker.
Thank you, Roya. I'm excited to be here. I love your energy, and I love what you're doing with this tribe, bringing powerful women together to manifest themselves into their highest selves. So I'm happy to be here and grateful to be your first male speaker.
Well, we couldn't learn it. We couldn't deliver it without your voice. And so I'm grateful for you to be here, because as strong women, we can, and I'm speaking from my own experience, we can inadvertently cut off the type of masculine energy we actually crave and seek by showing up in a way that doesn't allow them to step into their own richness. And so today, you and I had talked about potentially sharing 3 things that the masculine looks for in a female partner, the kind of masculine we would all like: a secure, without bravado man that's going to give us a space to be held and seen and have passion with. So tell us a little bit, unfold that for us, or a little bit about what do men look for? What are
okay, so we'll start with that. I'll turn my notes to my comments on that.
You know, I threw us off in order, didn't I? Just the way of the feminine.
It's okay. We gotta roll with the wild feminine here. If I had any notes. Yeah, so you've asked me to share 3 things that men want from women, or the masculine wants from feminine. And I took a while to ponder this, and here's what I came up with. Number 1, celebrate the fact that we're different. You know, we live in a world where we're all supposed to be the same. And I think that we have to segment out our professional lives and the administrative part of our lives with the intimate part of our lives. And in the professional part of our lives, I'm assuming every woman on this call, she can take care of her business. She's successful in what she does. She gets things done. And that is where we're largely the same. We're in that masculine energy. Both men and women are in that masculine energy. But in our intimacy, to have it be really juicy, there need to be differences, and there are differences. And we want you guys to celebrate those differences. And one of the biggest headline differences between men and women is we want less and women want more, or the feminine wants more. You guys want more connection, more attention, more of our love, more of our heart. And most of the time we're wanting less. We're wanting nothingness. And it's you know, it manifests in that age-old cliche of the man cave. And, you know, the man cave is not just a place to go and hang out with your buddies or drink beer or watch sports. There's a solitude and a nothingness to it that we actually need. And so, you know, I can speak from personal experiences of back when I was married, and, you know, I would come home from a long, hard day, and my wife at the time needed all of my attention immediately, and there was no space to allow me to decompress. And she didn't really recognize that in me, that it's what I needed to then come back and be more fully present with you. And so that's just one example of a difference between the men and women that we crave that you guys would acknowledge.
Can I just ask a question of clarity?
Yeah.
So it's not that you don't want love and you don't want connection. It's that you need space in order to gather your masculine energy to provide that feeling to us.
Yeah, when we have a period of being out in the world and getting things done, to come back and then give connection, intimate connection, like we're tapped out. Whereas you guys have much bigger reservoir of and stamina for, you know, love and connection. You can do it all day long. For us, we need to back off, recharge, gather ourselves to then be available to you for that connection. And it's very, very important for us. Again, because we're not naturally attuned to being in our heart, maintaining the connection, being in connection. So we have to recharge and and gather ourselves to then be available for you in this example.
So for example, you come home, And ideally, you have the conversation, of course, with your particular man, something like when you come home, you greet him for a moment, but don't go into dialogue until he kind of comes back to the table and says, how was your day? Or how does that work?
Yeah, you could expand, you could generalize, go into dialogue. It's just, don't look for that emotional connection right away necessarily. Realize he may need to do some things to be available for you for connection. He's not always available for connection. The corollary is, of course, sexuality. Like, we men, we're stupid. We think that you guys are immediately turned on like we are, and we think that you should be always available for sexuality. And everybody here knows that it's a process.
That's a
And
great
so,
parallel for us
yeah,
to understand exactly what you're talking about,
yeah.
of how you need to rev up, and in one way, and we need to rev up in
Yes.
sexually.
Yeah, so let's acknowledge those differences. If I turn that around on the men, I'd say, don't come to complain to me that your wife isn't interested in sex as much. What are you doing to actually foster her to relax into her own sexuality? What are you doing to bring her to that place or allow her to get to that place? So I think it's both sides recognizing the differences between the two can make us much more successful with one another.
Okay, and number 2.
Yeah, this is one that I call a clear expression of your heart. And I recognize it's a bit of an ideal, but I'm going to put it out there as an aspiration for everyone. I think everybody acknowledges that the feminine is way more in touch with their emotions and feels their emotions way more deeply than we men do, both of the highs and the lows. And the problem is when like intense emotion is expressed, which we know is part of life with the feminine. My experience, I'm not going to generalize over everybody on the planet, but my experience and experience of a lot of people I know is that often with the feminine, that expression of pain, when you're in emotional pain about something, it can.
Oh dear, we froze. Uh-oh. Oh,
I
you're
can hear
back.
you. Yeah.
Okay. It
Okay.
can. That's all we
Yeah.
heard.
Okay. It can get intermixed with some toxicity, which is basically blaming and shaming. And, it's natural human nature. But the problem is, if that blaming and shaming sneaks in there, what you're giving us is something to defend against. You're forcing us to defend against this blame or the shaming.
We froze again. We're giving you something to defend against. Instead of being able to hone in and hear our message, we're setting you up for defense. Okay, you're
Well,
unfrozen. We're having a connection challenge. You know why? Because it's so juicy, deliciously good. That's why.
all right. How's the sound now, Roy?
You're back.
Okay. It's not so much that you're setting us up, it's that it's just in the communication, in the expression of your pain, there's something else intermixed in there that distracts us from your actual pain, and it puts us in a position where we feel like we have to defend. And so, to the degree that you can express your pain to us without any blame or any shame, just share the clearest expression of what's happening inside your heart. That's the easiest way I can put it. And it's not like, you did this and you never ever pay attention to these things, and you always, that kind of language is a nice indicator. It's a red flag for some toxicity mixed in with your expression. But if you can just say the clearest expression of your own heart, of how you're really in a lot of pain, and you might say, hey, when you said this, what I noticed is I just felt so hurt inside, and I felt myself close, and I don't want to feel that with you. So it's a clearer expression of your pain actually helps us stay present to it. But when you mix any blame and shame in, even just a little hint of it, and even inadvertently, it distracts us, and then we go into our defensiveness. Now, it's not your responsibility for us to not be defensive. We have our half to play in that. But the clearer you can make the expression of your heart and your pain, the better it will be.
Wow, I love how you said that. when this happens, I feel my heart closed and I don't want to feel that with you.
Yeah, because you're sharing yourself, but you're still inviting us back in, and
Mhm.
it feels really good, I can say, from
Yeah.
this side.
Yeah. Awesome. And your third one, what else do we need to know?
We appreciate a woman with range. We want your range of your full expression in life, and I have to say, in particular, in the bedroom. You know, we love a woman that who feels safe enough, who can let her wildness out and let her smile and her big laugh. And for me personally, that is, you know, that's the one of the most attractive things that I find in a woman is the radiance. You know, it's a big laugh, it's a big smile that's just uninhibited. And in the bedroom, like sexual expressiveness and playfulness and all those things. You know, that's one end of the spectrum, and then the other end is sort of the depth of heart, um, and the confidence in the world. You know, for me, those are the two things that I can't live without. It's expressiveness and then deep heart, and that's a
Mm.
whole range. And so to find a woman that's got that whole range, you know, who can play with you and be very fun, have the depth of heart, the depth of intimacy, and the sophistication to go to the symphony and the art museum. You know, it's that whole range that we really love. And so for, you know, for any woman that asked, I would recommend just, you know, develop your range and find ways to do that, um, and you'll find yourself more attractive to men.
Wow. So some of us girls, we feel like we have to put on a certain front of, you know, I am not as smart as he is, or I am only playful and giddy. And so whatever it is true to you, correct me if I'm wrong, GS, whatever it is true to you, we all have different ways we show up given the scenario. And so just allowing that. And if you're feeling like something's hilarious, or if you're feeling like something's really sad, let the tears flow or let the laughter go instead of pretending it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's very attractive.
Mm. Great. Well, now we want to know, okay, so as women that are in this era of independence, I can have it all, I can do it all, I can be it all. We're living in this societal messaging that you gotta not need someone, and if you
Mm-hmm.
do, something's wrong with you. In this tribe, we're beginning that language and that understand that conversation that we were created for connection.
Mm-hmm.
And especially as women, if you go back to the caveman days, we were connected in circles, and then our men were a part of that. They came in for a part of that, and they came in different than we were with each other as the women sitting around the campfire. And somewhere along the way, we lost this respect for needing the yin and the yang, the him and the her, and we feel like we're not enough if we need something from a guy. So then we have these a lot of dysfunctional in my coaching, a lot of dysfunctional relationships, and we don't even know what a secure masculine looks like or feels like,
Yeah.
and what would that do to our body if he showed up.
Yeah.
So I can speak to what it does to the body, but can you speak to what does a healthy relationship, what does a healthy, secure man show up like? What are three things that we could use as identifiers that he can?
Yeah, and I would even reframe you know, these three that I'll offer, because it's what a lot of women I've talked to who have accessed the book have told me. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe how well you understand us. Now you've given me a language to understand, at least for myself, what I'm looking for in a man. Like, what do I expect? So even if it's just informing yourself about how you might search for such a man, or if you're in relationship, the ways that you can ask for him to show up. Now you have a voice for it. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah, you know, look, ladies, for a man, you know, you upset at us is one of the hardest things that we have to deal with. It's flummoxing. I am, I'm right now, two of my closest friends, both engaged, are, you know, on the verge of, you know, maybe the relationship's dissolving because they just don't know how to handle their woman when she's upset. And it's one of the tough things. And that's where we're at our worst. And you guys have unfortunately experienced that firsthand. One of the things I coach the guys for women like those in this SHE-ness tribe is, it doesn't matter how powerful she is. She can be the woman in, at the head of the boardroom, or that amazing woman you see from across the way at the coffee shop, and you're just in awe of both of these women and their power. Inside every woman, even the most powerful ones, is intensely vulnerable core. And I'm not telling you guys already know this. I'm just
I
sharing.
hope the men hear you say that.
Yeah, this is what I'm sharing with men. It's like, you have to see that part. And I've gone through this in relationship. I think my last long relationship, it took me a while to actually see the little girl in her. And when I did, things got immediately better. And what we don't understand is two things. One is, you guys feel emotions way more than we do. So, anything that creates emotional response is going to rock you even more than it does us, no matter how powerful you are. And the other piece that you and I have talked before, Roya, is you guys have a physical vulnerability in the world that we just can't really understand, or we don't go through. And so, there's a level of unsafety, I think, for a lot of women that men don't realize, and we make it worse. So what do we do to make it worse? We invalidate your feelings. You try to convince you not to feel it, that you shouldn't feel a certain way because of this, new information I'll give you. We forget things that are important to you. We aren't present with you, when we're together, and we deny or hide our emotions. Like, these are things that we do as men, unfortunately, to contribute to your emotional unsafety. And when women feel emotionally unsafe, that's generally when they're going to get emotionally chaotic. And unfortunately, the thing that men do is we try to dismiss that by calling you crazy. We use the C word, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's how men, dismiss your behavior. And we do it because we actually don't understand it. We just, this goes back to talking about the differences between us. We just see you in a frenzied state over something. And often we're just like, wow, I don't know what to do. And so, we're in a state of confusion. And so,
and we're trying to desperately cry out for more understanding. And so we get wilder about it, louder about it.
Yeah.
And you're more kind of maybe freaked out by our attempts. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't understand. You're like, how can you not understand this? How is it you don't understand that I'm upset over here?
For us to more understand emotions. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, to your point, to put an exclamation point on it, every strong woman and every woman has a need to win in some respect and a need to be held. And in those moments of her chaos, she's crying to be held with your security of love and your presence. And we're inadvertently pushing you away if you're not an in-tune masculine like you.
All we want to do is run. All you need to do is hug, and we think that you want to kill us. We want to get the hell out of there. So this is the divide that I'm trying to at least help the men overcome. Because, if you don't, here's what men do. We withdraw. I can't talk to you right now. Let's talk when you're calmed down. Or they might withdraw in place, which they just sit there and they just go stony. And, they're sort of pretending, and or we go into defensiveness. That's the big one. And I could go on and on about defensiveness. But so I have this list of 7 things. I write about it in the book. It's in chapter 14. And 7 things 7 ways to handle your woman when she's upset. So you would ask me to go through 3 of those.
Yes.
And one of the first ones that I really try to teach men is hear the pain, not the blame. This goes back to asking for a clear expression of your heart. If that's not happening, I'm really teaching men to see past the blame, see the little girl inside of her, and see her from that place, because then you're going to be able to see that she's hurting. And so there's a mental component to that, like, hey, men, recognize the little girl in her, recognize that she's hurting. The other things I teach the men are a lot of embodiment practices. So it's a lot of breathing, meditation, and movement practices that I'll teach them. What that does is it really brings their nervous system down so that when we encounter chaos, we can be more present and grounded. We don't get freaked out. So we can be more present and be more choiceful. I also,
I've seen in conversations with you in the past that when there is deep expression, and if a woman, if we're not used to expressing it, we can do it in a very defensive or chaotic or harsh way. But something I've noticed you've said that was a great point, or a great technique that I just want to bring here is, you've said in the past, like, speak your truth. I want to hear it. And when given that permission, when the masculine says, speak your truth, I notice in the interactions that the guard goes down naturally, and the expression in a way that's more healthy seems to come out, because you've been invited as the feminine to be heard.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, there's a chicken and egg to what you just said, because the men will think, well, if she just would express herself more cleanly, then I wouldn't have to get upset. I wouldn't have to get defensive, and I'd be more open. And the feminine side might say, well, if he could just invite my truth in more, then I would be able to relax, like you said. So there's definitely a chicken and egg. And I teach the men, and I got this from my teacher, John, open first. You be the one, man, you be the one to open first. Not because you're supposed to, it's because you choose to. And you choose to lead the two of you into a better place. And that's really important for the men. Yeah, because we can dismiss you, and it's like, well, she's just being a bitch, and so I'm just going to blame it on her, and I'll just go into my man cave. No, man, open first. Open first.
By saying things like, speak your truth, and listening.
I think by doing the work to be more embodied, so that you can be more present, so that you're capable of saying, baby, give me your truth right now. I want to hear it all. But it starts with capability. It's not so much a mental choice. You have to do the work to build the nervous system capability to be able to invite that in. And then when you have the capability, what's that?
The steps, you go through the steps in your book of how to build that nervous system.
Yeah. Chapter 13 goes on into embodiment, and then I'm probably pretty soon I'll release a video series for the embodiment practices at a deeper level that I teach.
And it seems to me like it could be a superpower in general to build that type of nervous system for anything that you do in work and in life. Absolutely.
I couldn't say it better myself. Yeah, it's a universal skill, and it's just the hardest to develop it with our woman. So you get it right there, you get it right anywhere.
We're supposed to challenge you to rise to your highest heights.
Yes, thank you for all of that.
Okay, how about 2 and 3?
Okay, so the next one that I chose was for men to take responsibility. So in this emotional expression of the woman, the chaotic emotional expression, we'll write it off as crazy, but I say, men, consider it 50-50. She's trying to blame you, you want to blame her. Consider it 50-50. 50% of it is you just ignore it. But there's 50% where she's probably spot on, and that's on your half of the court. And find the kernel of truth. That's what I say to them. Because nobody's like truly crazy. Somebody might be acting crazy, but they're not truly crazy where they're just completely delusional. There's probably a kernel of truth. And I think men, we get so defensive, we want to block out all of it. And so the more the men can build that capacity in their nervous system and stay present, they can say, okay, what could be true here? And I ask men to really own that kernel of truth.
What could be true here?
Yeah. And ask the question and just let it sit. Okay, all right, what could be true? Okay, she wants to batter me. She's trying to tell me I'm evil. Put that aside. What could be true here? Okay. And then own it. Just
and
own
women,
it.
we can do that same question for ourselves.
Yeah. It can be used on both sides. And so own it, but I think certainly for the men, this probably goes for both, but I just focus on the men. Then say what you're going to do different, because there's something about action, I think, that the feminine really responds to. Like if I just talk about, okay, owning something, it's just a lot of talk. But if I say, okay, and you know what I'm going to do differently? Here's what I'm going to do differently.
100%.
Forward.
100%.
And so, yeah, talk about, and so bring the focus on the action as well. Now, of course, I have to do it. I can't just talk about doing it.
Right.
But for me to own something and then say specifically what I'll do differently, my experience has been it opens the feminine a lot. So if you take this, I call it the trifecta. You give empathy, you take responsibility, and you specify action. Like that trifecta generally is going to tend to open most feminine.
Yes, I know I'm not the only woman listening to this that's going, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the second one.
That's the second one. I love it. Yeah, it makes my whole body go, yeah. And number 3?
Well, I love that. Yeah, so, I put a lot of responsibility on the men in my teachings, just because I try to get them off of waiting for their woman to change. But this last one is
start with self and anything that you're looking to improve. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This last one's slightly differently, and men, you have to know when to set a boundary. You have to know when to set a boundary. And if you've seen through the blame, if you've given empathy, if you've tried humor, if you've taken responsibility, and she's still, upset, not able to really heal with you,
have healthy communication.
Yeah, and if it goes into the realm of being insulting, at some point you just have to be, you know what, enough. And some of the examples I give are like if women have been, mad at me and went into the shaming part on something, and I just be like, baby, I appreciate what you have to say, and we're not going to insult each other. And I try to do it bilaterally. I say, we're not going to it. So it's less about, stop doing that, rather than that's not how we're going to be in this relationship. And I'm open to hear you, but I'm not here to hear your shaming. And I'm clear about that.
That's an amazing leadership quality, whether you're leading in the business or the bedroom. But I love it. I don't know, when I heard you say that one, and I'm probably interrupting it too early, but because when I read that the first time, I thought, not only is it an incredible leadership positioning, but almost like this natural heat that turns on. You're probably, at that point, you're so mad. To me, when I get that mad, I'm closed off. I don't want you to touch me. I don't want you to spit in my general direction. But when you stand up and you say, this is my worth and this is what we will not do, it almost like reopens the fire of attraction. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm turned on.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but it works at times. Yeah. Another example of that, I can remember being, girlfriend at the time was mad at me, and she was getting mad in a way that I knew was just kind of silly. But I didn't tell her, oh, this is, that's silly. Don't feel like that. I was just like, baby, no, we're not fighting right now. We're going to connect. We're going to get in that bed and lay next to each other and connect. And she was like, okay. And it just cut the fight off before it even could, take shape and take root.
I think so often men feel like when we're in our rants, they have to match our energy. They have to match our emotion in order to be in it with us. And what you're really showcasing here is that you're kind of taking hold of that emotion and you're redirecting it intentionally to be more productive for the both of us. And because we as the feminine are more emotional creatures, for you to take that leadership space not only creates healthier communication, but it gives us this feeling of the safety that we're looking for, the direction that we crave without being manhandled to get there. It's still creating a we space. And I think guys think we want them to bend to everything we want. We want to be heard, but we don't want a wimpy guy that has no sense of self-worth and self-judgment.
Yeah, that's the trap men put themselves in. that thinking that just give you what you want and therefore you'll be happy and then everything will be fine. And unfortunately it's counterintuitive, because that's not how it works. And you have to, it's not putting your attention and satisfying what she wants all the time. It's like, what serves the greater love here? Like that has to be your North Star,
Ooh,
not what you think
serves
she
greater
wants.
love here?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it could be setting a boundary. It could be bending you over and giving you a little spank on the ass because you're being a bad girl and, you know, kind of getting snippy when you don't need to be. It could be an expression of love. It could, you know, it could be all these things. And for the men, I just coach them. You have to feel into the moment. And that's why I give you a list of 7 things, because it's not a progression. It's a toolkit, and you pick what's appropriate to the moment. And, you know, it might be giving you what you want, but it also might not be. So it's about serving that greater love between the two.
That's how you frame
That, yeah.
yeah. That's how you go from masculine bullying to leadership.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, very different. You know, masculine has such a connotation because of the history of misogyny, or misogynistic behavior.
Yes.
But
It's created
it's
fear
not
in
about
to be led.
exactly. And so it's like, you know, back off. I can handle myself, and don't give me that masculine bullshit. But you're right. It's not about control. I write about this a lot in the book. It's not about control. It's not about compulsion. It's about clarity and leadership. Very much so. And that's, you know, it's a little bit like the tango reference that is in my introduction that you read. You know, with tango, you don't move your partner's body. You know, you need her to turn, so you turn her. It's not like that. Actually, what you do is it's less of pushing the right shoulder to get her to do that, but opening the left shoulder and creating space that she knows that then she can move through. That's an invitation. That's a tango invitation to move, rather than me moving her body. And as I was learning tango, that was sort of, you know, I mean, I and every other student, that's the shift you have to make from, you're not moving her around, you're inviting her into certain directions. And so very much applies to what we're talking about here.
That's what we talk about in general in our movement. Instead of fighting, inviting for what we're looking for in our feminine rallies of equality and so forth. And invitation and love always wins over fighting and war. Just this has been so yummy on so many levels. And so, ladies, when I was reading this book, if you're a single woman, it gives you even more clarity of identification of what you're looking for in your next relationship. I found it also gives you some incredible reference points of where you can stand in the gap yourself and how you can potentially show up to invite that type of man that we crave. If we're already in a relationship, it gives language, and remembering we can only start with self. So GS, you'll be able to say more about this, but the challenge is, once we know and we crave and we see, and if we're not getting in relationship we have, how do we invite him to have a desire of potentially beginning to obtain that level of masculine security and leadership? You can't make any man read a book.
You can't.
You can just kind of maybe mention that you're loving it and leave it around. How do you invite your guy to read this?
It's exactly that. You and I must have talked about this before. I've had several women reach out about their partners, and they say, how do I get him to read it? All I want to do is jam it down his throat so he gets it. So yeah, you buy it, read it, leave it on the nightstand and say, that book was awesome. Don't say another word about it. He'll pick it up. I guarantee he'll pick it up. As soon as you read
the word lust, trust, and devotion.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't have to do anything, and you shouldn't do anything. It'll ruin the experience. And so, but yeah, that's how I'd recommend for women in partnership.
Wow. We had a question online previously. How do I find these kind of guys?
Yeah.
I know you're not a dating service. We actually talked about the possibility of creating an environment where people could go. I have something to add possibly, but would you please share your thoughts on that request? on that question?
Yeah, it's a tough one. You know, the first thing that I would say is become a radiant woman that has a very strong feminine side. Um, that's the number one way to attract men, because they'll see you from a mile away the more radiant you are. And you know, I don't think we have time to go into what that means, but there's lots of practices out there
Yeah,
that I think you're
don't know
more of a
what radiant
guide. Yeah.
means. Yes. Can you give them one peek into that? What does that mean to a man to see radiance, that word?
Okay, let me give, so when I say this, I'm going to give my experience of life. I'm not going to, this is not a definition. This is not what women should do. I'm very reticent to tell any woman what she should do, but I can give you what my eyes and ears enjoy. And it's a woman who's in her heart. It's a woman who's got a big smile and a big laugh because she allows herself to feel the joy of the world. It's a woman that can wear a dress, like a good dress. Um, it's a woman that is, I don't know if I already said this, but playful and can tease me. It's a woman that knows how to move her body. You know, prior partners and women I know have done S Factor, and that was just like, wow, holy moly. And so those are a few of the traits. I don't, yeah, it's not a comprehensive definition. It's just some of my experience of what I've enjoyed in terms of feminine traits. I have a short chapter on the book in this where I pretty much say
Oh,
what I just said. But that's what it looks like to me.
so, SHE-ness, this is what this is about, is the uncoupling of what we have learned to walk rigidly, to go from point A to point B, to discriminate against all things that are flighty and feminine and emotional, because that's what we have been taught up until this point. Now that we know better, we know better. And this is what it's about. It's about taking that pendulum that we've swung so far in the direction of independence and masculine energy, to taking it back to center. And so we actually will have workshops for you and have snippets for you to begin to unlock that feminine piece of yourself, that part that GS is talking about, and the radiance that will actually physically decompress the pains in your body. So if you are walking around with too much pain in your shoulders and there's not a physical ramification as to why, you have pain in your uterus, you have pain, you take antacids on a regular basis. These are some of the signs. If you are numb on the starting on the left side of your body, these are signs of feminine suppression. And we do have techniques to help you embody and release those trappings. And it does take practice, just like what the men have to do to embody masculine. Women, we have to practice it on a regular basis. So you're welcome to private message me on some places to point you on that, to attract just what we crave the most, which is what you described here. Gregory,
can I just add one more thing before you ask? I'll just add one more thing about the question. This will sound like a shameless plug, but join my mailing list, because one of the things that I've toyed with is creating some community around people doing this work. And so join the mailing list. You just have to go on the website and the pop-up will come up. And when that takes shape, you'll hear about it.
Yes, we were going to ask about that. So how else can they follow you and find you? I know you are new on social media, so we need to support. I mean, this book, you guys, needs to go viral. It is like so incredibly juicy. There are pieces and places you're going to find some of this information, but the book that GS wrote is so comprehensive. And it's almost, there are parts with textbook steps that are not written in a boring textbook format. Your jaw will be on the floor in some places. Your body might heat up also. So we need to follow him on Instagram and Facebook. So tell us how we're going to find you. And then we're going to put your website there so that they can get on your mailing list.
Yeah. Well, mailing list, as I said, which is on my website, GSYoungblood.com. You can find me on Facebook, GS Youngblood. I think it's GS Youngblood 1, if I'm not correct. And then I have the Masculine in Relationship discussion group. That's just for men, though, so let's put that aside. Instagram is GS Youngblood MIR. So those are some of the best ways. And I again, shameless plug. You know, your community, anything you can do to help me help more people, I would appreciate. And whether that's putting it out on social media, or if you know influential people who might get, the benefit from being exposed to the book, um, I'm okay to ask that. And the reason is I want to help men not make the same mistakes that I made. And then by extension, I'm going to help women not go through the pain that my ex-wife way back when went through, because I wasn't a developed man back then. And even more so, for married couples, if there are kids, if I can save even one kid from having to have that conversation where the parents say, we're getting divorced, then I'll feel like I've done some good in the world, because I don't want to ever go through any other kids to go through what my kids had to go through, because they had to have that conversation. And that's what motivates me to do this. So if you can help spread the word, I'm grateful.
And you have beautiful videos on YouTube also under GS Youngblood,
Mm-hmm.
of some podcasts that you have done and that you've been on that are highly beneficial.
Yeah, YouTube and my blog has all the videos.
And your wall. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for being here. I think you knocked it out of the ballpark. We're so excited to continue watching and following you. And thank you for all you gave us today. As women, we are grateful to have a peek into the man's mind and to be able to begin to access the life that we all dream about. So thanks everyone for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Roya.
Talk to you later.